Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut is working on a bipartisan effort to craft federal gun control legislation. Senator Susan Collins and Pat Toomey are reportedly among several Republicans willing to find common ground. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has also enlisted Texas Senator John Cornyn to work on finding a solution to gun violence. But so far, Democrats currently do not have the 60 votes necessary to overcome a filibuster in the Senate. For more on this, let's bring in Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst and Republican strategist, and Joel is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Leslie, let's start with you. Senator Murphy told NPR there is a good chance 4 or 5 Republicans will agree to what he calls common sense gun control measures. But he added, I'll be, quote, tougher to find the next 5. Where might Democrats and Republicans find this elusive middle ground?
You know, it's interesting, and it's a really important question. I think part of it is they have to move away from the caustic language that's so polarized. No assault, remove all assault weapons, you hear from the left, and absolutely no changes that you hear as a default response on the right. And nowhere in that conversation, which is what is exactly needed, is where is the responsible, and to use that term, common sense approach. I think increasingly you will see perhaps members from Texas, you're going to hear more people talking about the feasibility and what the plan would actually look like if you incentivized states to pass more red flag laws. If they looked at the real issues that Republicans bring up consistently around mental health and the mental health crisis. If you look at the issues of how that permeates throughout the family, and then having access to assault weapons, where is that connection, and how is that impacting a lot of these mass shootings, and what is the result of that? When they get to those types of conversations, I think increasingly there's an opportunity for more of our Republican members to get on board, but there is just as much responsibility for the Democrats to remove the language that makes it implausible for Republicans to come to the table.
Joel, several groups advocating for gun safety have urged President Biden to take action to curb gun violence and prevent future school shootings. What options does the president have, and how likely is it that the White House could act before Congress?
Well, the political realities do limit the options. The president does have some actions that he's already taken and probably can take through executive action. Just a few months ago, he announced a measure related to ghost guns, to tracking certain types of firearms out there. There's also an ATF nominee, actually, that the president has put forward to Congress, who has been the subject of a lot of back and forth and a lot of debate. I think that takes center stage now. And to what you were just discussing with Leslie, look, the funnel for legislation is pretty small on Capitol Hill. I think what it's going to take from Republicans is guts and moral clarity, and that seems to be in short supply. The fact that only 5 Republicans are even willing to have a real conversation about it, I think reflects the reason why so many Americans are dour and have no hope for actually doing something to address this crisis, that not just that we're in this moment, we've been in this crisis. I mean, Columbine was 1996, I was 13 years old. That's 25, 26 years that we've been in this hellscape. And it does not seem like there is any political end to it.
This question is for both of you. Leslie first. Former President Trump, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, and several other Republican lawmakers spoke at the NRA's annual meeting. What message does that send about guns in the U.S. following the mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde?
You know, this isn't the first time that the NRA has been the focus in light of many of these serious tragedies. And I feel like this is just a cycle on repeat. We have the same conversation about what's going to be done. Are we going to challenge the country's largest gun lobby? Is there too much political influence that they wield? Are they preventing any type of gun reform legislation, even what they would call common sense? I think the optics are not good for Senator Ted Cruz. There's certainly, and as a Texan, I will say there's a lot of sensibility in protecting gun owners' rights. But a lot of these gun owners are recognizing that there need to be parties that come together to look at where the weaknesses are in this structure. And true leadership are going to be those members that stand up. And I'm going to challenge Joel a little bit and ask him to come kind of corral his members to the middle on some of this as well, because there's so much politicalization. Beto O'Rourke standing up in the middle of the governor's press conference, an atrocious display of grandstanding, of all of these, some of these members, Democratic members, jumping on false stories that the governor was trying to pay people to take photo ops with. The point being, on both sides, it's atrocious how this gets so politicized and the optics of both of those efforts. But I do believe now, and I would say, and I hope it's not hollow words, more than ever, there is an appetite for this country coming together to do at least these small measures moving forward. And I'm very hopeful for that.
Joel, your response.
My friend Leslie is so kind to elect me Senate Majority Leader. I think I'm just over the age limit, so I think I'm just there.
Years you spent on the Senate side, Joel.
I think I take Leslie's point. Leslie's point is right.
She's promoting you.
This is a time for leadership. It's a time for serious people to step forward. I do think that despite some of the histrionics, I think people are very serious. I think regardless of Beto Cruz possibly grandstanding. I mean, what else would you do at a moment like this when they are cleaning up the bodies of grade schoolers? I mean, 19 kids in grade school. You want to scream because no one's listening. And I just want to add one other thing, talking about the speech at the NRA and the president's address and folks like Ted Cruz. I think the reason why we're so disconnected in our politics is because of a breakdown in belief in our institutions. The police, government, even schools, communities, all these institutions that we kind of grew up to believe in and to put a lot of faith in, to believe that people had our best interests at heart and that folks were of good faith trying to work together. I think those things have broken down. I think what we saw earlier this week will only add fuel to that fire. And until we get back to the point where people can have some restored faith in those institutions, I think we're all kind of chasing our tails a bit.
Yeah, Leslie, I just want to have a final point on this before moving on. Is there sort of a breakdown in trust and faith in our institutions? And is that part of the issue here?
Absolutely. I think if you look at just I'm going to use the word optics again, of both the left and the right, having their press conferences, and there's a lack of not only diversity, but there's a lack of women on those stages. And women tend to be, as elected officials, as advocates, the people in the room who can bring these parties together. So when we're looking at all of these solutions, it really comes back to, we need to change the people that are in the room, quite honestly, and have some more fresh ideas and people that are reflective of these communities. I'm haunted by the images of those children holding those honors certificates that they had. My mother has the same thing from me, my family, my cousins in our homes. This is everyone's responsibility, and I think we need to change some of the seats at the table.
Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne, thank you both.